A longer, long, quadruple note or quadruple whole note is a musical note that could be either twice or 3 times as long as a breve, 4 or 6 times as long as a semibreve that appears in early music. The number of breves in a long was determined by the modus or mode of a passage. Sections in perfect mode used 3 breves to the long, while sections in imperfect mode used 2 breves to the long. Imperfect longs, worth 2 breves, existed in perfect mode from the earliest sources, while the 14th century saw the introduction of perfect longs, worth 3 breves, in imperfect mode through the use of dots of addition. Prior to the innovations of Franco of Cologne in the mid-13th century, the value of the longa was in common usage in both theoretical and practical sources, but appeared primarily in ligatures, or 2 or more notes joined together. A ligature that began with a longa was said to lack propriety, while ligatures ending with a longa possessed perfection, since in the view of that era a proper and perfect rhythmic sequence was the succession of a brevis followed by a longa, justified by the fact that the ligature representing this rhythm is written the same way as a plain chant ligature. As a result, there were 4 possible ligature types: those beginning with a brevis and ending with a longa, which had both propriety and perfection; the reverse, which had neither; those both beginning and ending with a longa, which lacked propriety but had perfection; and those beginning and ending with a brevis, which were proper but not perfect. 2 longae, rarely 3, had the combined value of a maxima. The theoretical value of a maxima modus perfectus could only be written with 3 longae or a maxima plus a longa. Prior to 1450, the longa was typically written with a filled notehead with void and red noteheads used only to indicate an imperfect longa where perfect longae would otherwise be expected. Over the course of the 15th century, the void notehead became the norm. Unlike other rests used in mensural notation, which, like the notes, took the same form whether perfect or imperfect, longer rests often had different forms when the rest was imperfect, filling 2 spaces, or perfect, filling 3 spaces. Although it is described as late as 1667, by this date the note symbol was of purely theoretical interest, since changes in notational practice had rendered it too extended a value for practical use. While the longer note has not been used for more than 3 centuries, the longer rest still appears as a way of writing rests that last exactly 4 measures. When the longer note occurs in modern notation, it is often given the rounded notehead shape of the double whole note, looking like. In this context it is sometimes called a quadruple whole note, anon, n.d. Asuja, Ernali, and Butala. In Lillipond, the longer stem appears similarly to that of a half note, instead of always appearing on the right of the notehead as it does in mensural notation. This can be seen below. See mensural notation for examples.